Well, good afternoon. It is officially afternoon. I'm Bill Carell, and this is another episode in Lighting the Candle, Stepping Off into a World That Works. And we've got a really great group gathered here today. And with that, I'm going to pass it over for introductions. Shelley, how about you?
Good afternoon. Shelley Kohler. I am a small business development advisor. That is my profession. What my passion is really making a difference and bringing light to an area in which was shadowed or unfamiliar or unseen. And I am here because I love these people and the inspiration that they bring.
That's great. We poofed Vanessa, it appears. Hopefully she'll be back shortly. I hate it when people poof, don't you?
New moon energy.
See? Exactly. We're just talking about that full moon.
Yeah.
Oh, really? Yeah.
Lisa, your turn.
I am Lisa Sheehan. I've been in media my whole life, and now I'm branching out into entrepreneurship with a conscious living magazine called Epic, Empowering People, Inspiring Community. And that was born out of my my desire to see how to live holistically and more naturally and better myself personally and better the planet. So that's where we put everything is into that magazine. And because I love to share what I learn, because I'm a Reiki master and I do singing bowls and tuning forks and Diksha and BSR. So the more I can learn, the more I can share, the better I feel.
That's great.
Mm-hmm.
That's
awesome.
Great. So again, I'm Bill Carell. Lighting the candle, what's that about? Well, actually, if you think about the candle that we're lighting, it's a vision of the mind and not of the eyes. So it also comes from the old saw, it's better to light a candle than to curse the darkness. Taking action and not just talking about something with no difference being made. So with those things in mind, each week we kind of share a little bit about current events and what's important to each of us. And I'm feeling this week like there are enough things broken in my life that I actually need to set a few of them down and fix a couple before moving on. So it's actually not a choice that I have any choice in making, so I'm choosing that choice. So what really is on the front of my mind is not only power loss for a week, getting cleaned up for that, had the car broken into last Friday night or overnight on Saturday. I am still waiting for some kind of initial readout from the insurance company, and I can't find a rental car to rent that's in a reasonable distance from the house, et cetera. It just isn't working this week. So that's fine. We'll just kind of go limp and, maybe roll with it for a little while. But it's a really kind of nice analogy to, and it also makes me reflect on the people in the rest of the world that have real problems. My problems are not problems. They upset my schedule, and that's pretty much it. So with that in mind, if there's one thing that we can do, welcome back, Vanessa.
Hi. Thank you.
We'll see if we can put some lacquer on you and have you stick around for a while.
Oh my goodness.
You're too young, to probably remember when Polaroid cameras, if you took a bad picture and you didn't want anybody to ever see it, all you did, you just put the liquid on top and fix it. So we're introducing ourselves, Vanessa, and I asked everybody if you have a favorite quote. Would you please share that with us? And it's your turn.
Yeah, I do. Sure. Yeah, I do. Vanessa S. Lewis. I'm a marketing copywriter, freelance writer, and formerly a songwriter. And I love to just get together with great people, as I'm on the call with now, and just have a conversation about, great things or maybe not so great things, but anything that uncovers and reveals truth. One of my favorite sayings, I actually decided a few months ago to post it on my desk, so I see it all the time. And it's by C.S. Lewis. And it's just very simple, but I feel like I need the reminder a lot. So it's humility is not thinking less of oneself. It is thinking of oneself less.
Mm.
That's a golden oldie. And so where do you find yourself in that sentence?
That's a good question. So, well, I think because there's different kinds of pride, and there's pride is very it's used to celebrate certain things, but then it's also almost demonized, But there's also, I think people get humility confused a lot too. I know I used to, and one of the things was, because the quote is not thinking less of oneself, it's thinking of oneself less. So when there's something such as self-abasement, which is when we put ourselves down and we're almost to the point of being martyrs, and that's almost prided in some cultures or even in some of our hearts, but really that's actually a sort of pride, because what we're doing then is we're still always thinking of ourselves. I've known people like this, and I may have even been like this, in my past life without realizing, thinking, oh, always let the other person go first, always, and almost to a point of like self-sacrifice. If it's not done out of the motive of love, and including love for oneself. I know I feel like it might be kind of a blurry, I'm trying to explain it as clearly as I can, but so I would say that where I am in this quote, Bill, to answer your question, is just having this as a reminder to, be able to think of that it's okay to think of myself and even to put myself first in some cases, but it's also good to think about other people. And it's not that I don't have trouble thinking about other people, but I usually get to the point where, I put other people so far in front of me where I kind of ignore my own thoughts and feelings. And I think that's not a healthy place to be.
So that's a lot. Thank you. And as usual, very insightful and very, I read that as authentic, okay? It's how you really do feel.
Yeah.
So we live in a very interesting time where all of the media is constantly demonstrating to us the good and the bad of that particular sentence. It's an appropriate one for us to be talking about today. Are you familiar with the term gaslighting?
Yeah.
So what it takes in a culture for a small group of people to gain control is to convince another group of people by force of psychological method that their own thinking isn't sound and that they are not to be trusting their own thinking. And the reason for that is because they never have been all that smart. They never will be all that smart. And their job is to wait to be told what to do next. So the whole gaslighting is to get a person so broken down that they start questioning their own sanity. So obviously they're looking for a lifeline from somebody who seems to know what they're doing. Oh, by the way, that number of people trying to dominate a whole culture is growing. Now all of a sudden you have this minority of people who are convincing a portion of the other population that didn't used to buy into this whole notion, and then they are now recruited to continue gaslighting the rest of the population. And this is me talking. I haven't read this anywhere. It's just like I was listening, to some political commentary, and the word gaslighting came up about 4 times in an afternoon. And I said, well, I don't really know what that means. Oh, now I get it. It's also called propaganda. It's also called, totalitarian domination, where the line from the Pink Floyd song, Welcome to the Machine,
Mm-hmm.
it's all right. We told you what to think, So as we're going through the life here, the whole notion of critical thinking, which I think was, in my opinion, that's what spawned the whole intellectual revolution in the 16, 17, and 1800s that gave us all the brilliant writers and thinkers of the last century. And I'm just wondering, who would you point to today that might be an antidote to gaslighting? And I don't expect you to know an awful lot about that. Just as Vanessa, it's perfectly fine not to have an answer to a question you've never been asked. But if you were looking, out to the world today, who? It could be a group, it could be a person, it could be people of a certain nature. Who would you be counting on to be the antidote for gaslighting?
Bill, are you asking all of us or just me?
No, all of you.
Oh,
Okay, that's what I thought.
That was a great pause, though. I really like that.
I was like, I thought you were just asking Vanessa.
Me too.
Yeah, I mean, we can do it as a dialogue, or we can just share as a group. First of all, do people agree or disagree that there is gaslighting going on? It's a brand new word,
Well, I agree. I think it's been going on for a while. It's a different term. One that is acknowledged, I think, with nowadays intellectual connections. That's a loaded question, and antidote is a very broad, all-encompassing, because I truly don't believe that there's one antidote that cures anything. It is a combination. It is, you could call it a domino effect, or how those dominoes are set up. I think what I see in people looking for that antidote is they're looking for it in our government. They're looking for that one group that can tame the rest, or not necessarily influence, but can at least calm this gaslighting going on, or shift the flame. And again, this is just me speaking. It's my observations. It's nothing that could be totally true, but there is no containment. It's going to come out. It's just a matter of how the wind shifts and how and where it lands. Conversations like this float it to the top where it kind of needs to be, because there's so many people who have no idea that even gaslighting is going on. They're just flocking to the light, right? So then that exacerbates it. So it's always been about awareness. It's always been about choice. But it's also, even going back to your scenario, Bill, about how things have happened, right? Sometimes we have to embrace what is happening in order to get through, or put some things down in order to get through and take care of things one at a time. There's just, there's too many things to tackle or that are broken right now to fix all at once. So I think this whole conversation comes back and is all encompassing. So for me, that your question antidote just really kind of, I don't think there is one.
Well, that's really an interesting perspective. Lisa, how about you?
Well, I agree with Shelley that awareness is the key. Because gaslighting, I mean, I could picture there's psychological thriller movies that are based on that premise. There's a horrible TV episode of one of the SVUs that still haunts me because it was a horrible, horrible depiction of somebody gaslighting children, and it was beyond horrible. And now it's just becoming a popular phrase, I think, popular term. And awareness by finding out people that are speaking your truth or questioning everything. And I think questioning everything has been around or should be around more often because people are blindly following, and we know that they're doing that. And it's hard to talk them out of it, but to look for, I think we've talked about before, the commonality between somebody that isn't necessarily agreeing with you and pointing out other facts that they can actually listen to. And I admire Jordan Peterson for his insight into just about every topic. And I've mentioned him before, but I could watch his YouTubes and it'll be like on a topic that I just went, oh, I like that. And then I go, oh, crap, no, he just said I don't like, or here's why I shouldn't like that, or here's the real truth. I mean, I just find him to be very intellectual and based in complete fact and knowledge and experience. So if there's an antidote, I think I'd agree with Shelley that there's not just one, but that we have to point out facts to people that are just misguided as much as we can, even if it's just in our own circles.
So it's kind of interesting. I'm starting to pull together a couple of threads from what both of you ladies are saying. Vanessa, how about you?
Well, first of all, I agree with what they both were saying, and awareness is definitely the key. But I think one of the things with the technique, if you will, of gaslighting, because it's an abusive technique, right? It's a manipulative, psychological technique, and it's designed so that even if you feel the most aware, you begin to question your own awareness, because it's designed to make you feel like you can't trust, your own perception. At least that's how I understand it to be. But I'm curious, Bill, where did you originally start hearing that term? Because that really hasn't been a term that's been used since, I know it became popular with that was the movie in the 40s, where the term, a lot of times the term is referred back to. But where did you hear that? I mean, I know it was in a political, I'm assuming it was in a political area, but.
Yeah, it basically is almost always commentary by one person about what we all know about somebody else, It can be as insidious as, calling a person a rapist or a murderer or, whatever. Or it can be, something that's a little more subtle, like, teenagers, right? You know how teenagers are, right? Yeah, they're teenagers. What are you going to do? They're teenagers, right? Now, all of us have our own, it lands differently with every single person, just like the C.S. Lewis quote. And what really is missing and when you name a group of different things as all one big thing, in my opinion, you diminish the power of whatever that thing started out being. I don't know what gaslighting is or means. I only know what I read that it said in the internet. So now you're giving me other places to go and investigate this more, to look for a movie from the 1940s. Was it titled Gaslight?
It was.
Okay. All right. So we can leave it there. And at the same time,
hang on 1 second.
The term is used by a person in describing another person or other persons behavior. That if you hear somebody say something, that's not what they're saying. So I was listening, and I said back to the TV, I said, if gaslighting is somebody manipulating people psychologically, usually through conversation, by painting an image of who they really are that they can't possibly see or detect for themselves, then who's gaslighting? Is there gaslighting when gaslighting is being talked about? And there's empowerment when empowerment's being talked about? You know? So the thing that I heard Lisa say, there's two things really. One is the strength of the, the innate character, and as Stephen Covey talks about, your compass, your moral, ethical, and just who you are as a human being compass. And one of my favorite quotes of his is that in cultures of a sufficient strength of morality, laws are not necessary. But where that sufficiency is not there, laws are unenforceable. So is it possible we're actually seeing that played out on the big screen, every single night? That we've got people who are supposed to do something in response to somebody else doing something, and they're not being empowered to do that. They're being told to do the opposite. And we're talking about people whose job description is to get out there and stop some of this stuff that's going on in different parts of the country. So I kind of see that there's a certain level of dysfunctionality when people are not sure what to do next on almost any subject. And where does that leave the people that are not involved in those particular conversations? And what, we were talking about this a few weeks ago, in the aftermath of several different things, but there's a real, in my opinion, of some of the things that I see on the tube before I turn it off, kind of a replay of things that I've seen in different cultures back to the 40s or back to the, to the 1911, 1917, different parts of the world, when there was a major cultural and shift in terms of power and taking control of a group, of a country or something of that nature. So now I wonder, and the main reason that I wanted to talk about this today was we all have an opinion about what's going on across the country, and it's landing with each of us uniquely. And at the same time, how do we start to have a counterbalance to, I think I'm going to use the word lunacy. And sometimes it goes on for 2 lunar cycles or longer. The idea is that you have, in my opinion, you have to train people to use their bullshit detectors, okay? And you have to train them when they're in a educational experience, not to just believe everything that they're being told, listen to it. And there are some things that you take on board, and there are others that you just let go by and you forget about. And I'm kind of interested in how that can possibly happen when everyone is looking to the state or to the government to correct problems in their personal lives, while the problems are being created by people in the government training the people to have those problems, so that those problems will persist through time, so there'll be a need for more government and more solutions. Now, I may not be right in that little sentence, but there does seem to be kind of a cycle going on here. If there isn't enough government, let's cause some problems, and then let's whip a little solution on those problems. And now we got, a couple more people working in the government. So the whole idea is we're lighting a candle, we're having a conversation, and there's the whole notion of saying what's so, right? So even saying what's so isn't what's so, it's just a human being talking about what they've perceived and what's landed for them and how it seems, okay? It's actually how it seems, and it's not what's so. So we're listening more than any time in my lifetime to people out of a 24-hour news cycle. 23 hours of it is people talking about their opinions and telling you what it means and interpreting and doing, landing thoughts into people's brains over and over and over and over again. And I'm just really kind of wondering where the distinction, when Orwell was talking about 1984 and how the government would have this thing on the wall that was on all day long, and not only could they see what you were doing or hear what you were doing, they would correct people, if somebody was monitoring. Are we living in that kind of a situation at the moment? And how do we maybe go back to something else?
That's a good question. I mean, it kind of shifts what we were talking about, but the first thing I think of is we are certainly being monitored a lot more than we ever have before.
Yes.
And there's a lot of ways that we're being watched, we're being seen, we're being heard almost constantly. And then there's some things where we just voluntarily put information out there, but what is the information being seen and heard and, listened to by? It's government, right?
Yes.
So to feed back into what you were saying about gaslighting, and again, just my perception, not, I love this. We're all here sharing our own opinions based on our own perspectives, our own life stories, et cetera. And, maybe or maybe not reaching a consensus, but just being able to at least voice what we're all experiencing. So wouldn't it be interesting to think that if we're being monitored in such a way, and it's so innocent, or at least we've been trained to just share. Maybe I'm talking about something like like Twitter or Facebook, something where we can openly share our opinions anytime, and then our guards are down because they're with our friends and people we trust, but we know in the back of our minds, and we've been doing it for so long that we feel safe sharing some of our really confidential or could be confidential information. We're a lot more desensitized in that way. So if we're sharing it, but I guess what I'm getting at is that that information is being taken in by a government entity or several entities or whichever. And then they're able to then take that information and disseminate it to be able to, it's like market research, right? I'm a copywriter. It's like market research. You get to find out what people are talking about, what people are concerned about personally and as a culture, and then be able to then feed that back into the narrative that we're all being fed through the news or any other media station. So then just to bring it around full circle to where you were talking about the gaslighting though, just think about how that very system could feed into them then being able to tell us what we do on here, or if they see us as an entity, as an organization, as an organism ourselves, starting to think one thing, well, now they're going to be able to say what they need to make sure we think something else, preferably what they want us to think, whether it's truth or not.
Wow.
May I say something? Brilliant. Shelley?
Yeah, always.
Absolutely brilliant. And so coming back to, all of that, my first thought was, and then I'm going to back up, we're giving them the matches. We're giving them they're gaslighting us to then gaslight us, to then we can gaslight ourselves. It's a vicious circle. And going back to that, if you look at how things used to function, and technology was the perfect platform. It has been the perfect platform to evolve this, whatever term that we want to call it, to capture the information, the data. It also feeds into our economy. It feeds into all of this marketing and the whole facade of it all. But the underlying piece of all of this technology is taking the very moral compass out of every single one of us, because we don't need our moral compass anymore. This is telling me what I like. This is, it's capturing all this information about me without me actually having to feel it, share it, but have that interaction with my neighbor. So, when I look back, what was the shift? Technology. It's always been the shift. I can remember when I was sitting in my parents' car and my dad was next to me, he pulled out this big old bag, right? This big old bag. He unzipped it and it was a phone. And he said, call your mother and ask her what she needs at the store. And I'm like, what? I'm like, what is this? He said, this is a bag phone. Started as a bag phone. And I'm like, are you serious? He said, no. So I literally dialed my mom and I'm like, holy cow. That forever changed. Like, why don't we just go home and ask her and then go back out? No, so technology, in my opinion, changed everything about our personal, about our awareness, about where we stand, how we feel, how we should think, and what we should do. And Vanessa, you're so right. We give this away because we think it's the greatest thing since, people don't know this, sliced bread, which was another invention. But it's true. It's that awareness that we are so easily just to give away our personal information that it desensitizes us, and we really don't need to feel because we're going to be told how to feel. However, when COVID hits, when our technology is taken away from us, when we have a complete shutdown of no electricity, no anything, now we have to feel, now we have to function. And some people don't know how to do that. And there is a projection. It's the electric company. It's this. So there's all this projection going on as well. So I know I kind of jumped around a lot, but I truly believe a lot of it is technology for the good and the bad, but we haven't been really aware or taught the balance of all that and the repercussions. We are seeing the repercussions.
It's pretty interesting. So if you stop and think about it, like what we're doing right this second is probably landing on a server somewhere at the NSA that years from now, after they've built, they just keep getting smaller and smaller and more powerful storage. That's why you can buy a 70 terabyte set of hard drives for $1,000. It used to cost you $1,000 for a 10 megabyte hard drive that fit on an XT computer, back in 1980 or 81. So the whole idea here is that we don't teach people to feel. We teach people to survive. That's our whole culture revolves around them knowing always and everywhere there's something wrong here, okay? We live in a soup of there's something wrong. And we are constantly, the more we're being reminded of it, the more, as you said, Shelley, when they tell us something, we don't have to think they're going to tell us what it is. Down in your heart, in your mind, your heart, and your gut, one of those three is going, I'm not buying this, And that discord between what they're saying, what I like to call the party line, whatever that narrative is not landing as, yeah, I kind of agree with that, because it can't possibly land with everyone. It lands with the converted. It lands with those who have been, it's like the Borg assimilating, different people one or two at a time. I loved that analogy on Star Trek for what cultures do, that they dominate, assimilate, make the same, and homogenize, and you've got stability, consistency, and everybody working for the whole. But nobody has thought. My car's extended warranty. Can you hear that?
Get on that, Bill.
I don't have a car with an extended warranty.
But
I
have your
I saw this wonderful meme. This guy gets off the grid. He sells everything he has. He sells his car. He walks 19 miles into the woods and pitches a tent. A carrier pigeon shows up and has got a little note on his ankle that says, "We're trying to contact you about your extended car's warranty."
That's great.
Oh my God.
My wife insists on having an answering machine on a landline. We never ever use it to make outbound telephone calls, but that was I think somebody upstairs put that in there for just to kind of break up the tension a little bit. So the whole idea of the significance of all of this is, if you're thinking about how, in what ways can we make the world a better place, that's reaching over to the other side of there's something wrong here. That's starting to carve out an opening where you can create possibility, where something new that's not based on what was here before, bigger, better, faster, less of, whatever it is that's comparing to the past. It gives you this opening in the future. And I want you to consider something, that whatever the conversation is, and then I'm going to quote a president, well, that's what is, okay?
It is what it is.
Well, that's another quote, and that's not the same thing.
Depends on what you mean by the word is.
Exactly.
Exactly right. So the whole idea is, if you are speaking about something, it exists. It's alive. It's right here, right now. I say to you, gaslighting, none of us probably would have been able to completely share the experience, the feeling, the understanding, but each one of us added in our little bit of detail, the movie, the picture of 40 children, blah, all the rest of that. We don't have those kinds of conversations out in the world very often at all. It's usually one person talking to a lot of people and telling them how it is.
Mm-hmm.
And those people are either getting it and going along, or they're not going along and they're doing their own thing. So how do we, if you stop and think about what keeps a riot going in a city for 82 or 83 consecutive days, they're being financed and cheered on by somebody. Nobody can not have a job for 2.5 months and eat every day. What's going on? Are they going home to collect their $800 a week is this how we have professional rioters at this point? I don't know. These are just thoughts that cross my mind. So while we're talking about making the world a better place, lighting the candle, is it possible that the type of speech, that if you're listening for the type of speech, not to call it out or to push against it, because I think it's been proven over and over again, if you want something to live through time, all you have to do is attach it to some sort of an object. That's the main reason for taking statues down, or for painting graffiti over the top of something that's nice and means something to people. It's to change their experience of whatever that structural item is, so it no longer refers to something inside of you and me. So who actually saw the World Trade Center, before 9/11? Vanessa, were you ever at the World Trade Center?
No.
We raised our hand just so
No.
All right. Have you ever been on the top of the World Trade Center? Yeah. So all three of us have experienced that. I was there at least 10 or 12 times, and it was always a place to take my family. When I took my two girls, one was 6 at the time and the other one was 9 when she went, and we went to the top and we looked out over Manhattan and out over the Hudson and the East River and all that good stuff. And there's no way that you can convey that feeling to someone who has not been there, nor can you convey that feeling to somebody who hasn't been to Alaska or Hawaii or the Great Salt Lake or Grand Canyon, or the Smoky Mountains. You say all of those things, and if, as I was saying the words, they're getting presence here and now. And that's what happens when we're watching the boob tube. How much of what is on all of those 1,000 channels, or what's streamable, has anything to do with making the world a better place?
There are some out there, though.
Yes.
And I'm going with the discord where people believe that there is a better way, or better is probably relative too. And I'm also, as we all know, being writers and business people, words are very powerful, but we put the meaning on them.
Yes.
So, and we put the meaning on every inanimate and animate object that's out there. And we can't help it as human beings but to do that. But we can, and with the talk about technology, we all in our generations got so caught up in such a faster paced development of technology that I think we're still catching up in our minds on where it's all at. But the generations that are coming into the planet now, they know what to do with it. So I'm having hope for that too, because they came into it that way. And if you listen to some native cultures and stuff like that, they know that there's a different wavelength that they came into, and
Yes.
they're pre-prepared for what's going on now. Whereas we're all lost in what the heck happened between the 50s and the 90s and now, because there were huge leaps. When we used to have the same TV and nothing ever changed for 20 years, and now you have to have a new one every 6 months, and phones and tables that actually are computers and refrigerators that are computers and stuff that we all thought was just the Jetsons. It's now, it's real, and it's hard to fathom it all for us. And then we have to throw in all this political and now the COVID thing. And I think the COVID thing is really just a wake-up call for so many people in so many different ways. And it is to internalize it. It is to question things, everything, because nothing is the same anymore.
Yeah, there's no continuum of last month, last year, last decade, next month, next year, next decade. So we have, I think, a sufficient number of people sufficiently upset with their own safety and their own ability to continue through time, that it's now an opportunity for people to take advantage of that in some way or shape. And with that being said, as people continue, the ones who have been trained to follow the rules continue to follow rules set by people who don't follow the rules, there's a ton of opportunity for mischief here, and not in a good way, So how does the message get out? Because the words are everything, in my opinion, as well, Lisa. If people are not getting an opportunity to listen to different reports or different views on what's going on in the world, but they're hearing the same exact words said 25 times a day by 25 different people, but the exact same phrases. It's remarkable to me. These people obviously talk to each other, I think. So just a little thing like gaslighting, and for me to sit and go, now I wonder what that means. And gee whiz, if you're telling me that there's a group of people that think other people all think alike, you're making my head hurt, okay? You're telling me that you think there's another group of people who think badly about another group of people, that they know what they think. It's like, that is really, it's an endless loop. Mm-hmm. That might be gaslighting. Mm-hmm. It might be. So whenever somebody talks about these identity-related issues, whether you're male or female, and now we can slice and dice that about 7 different ways. The color of your skin, your national origin, et cetera.
No, I don't.
whatever. So I was raised in a house where people didn't care about that kind of stuff. You know, my dad was very, very derogatory about people of color, but he had to be to survive in inner city Detroit. There were gangs, okay? So you either were with somebody or you were what they would commonly call food, okay? They would take your lunch money, okay? So the point is that generation started to set up, you know, the Archie Bunker caricature that then other people could say, no, Archie Bunker's a real guy. He's everywhere. He's anybody who's over 70 years old and he's white, you know, and he's retired and he worked in a blue collar job. No, they're all Archie Bunkers, right? Like, honestly, I'm not kidding you, right? That seems like a lot of work to me. Is there some little gray-haired old man sitting in a castle somewhere that's calling people up and saying, now today say this, you know, now today say that? I'll keep the money coming. Just do these things.
Yeah, the word of the month is gaslighting.
Yes.
I just remember password. Today's password is.
Alan Ludden, yes, absolutely. Did you have the home game?
No. Oh, I think we did on video, like the old one or something.
Yeah, this little red.
Yes.
Hold it up very closely. Don't let anybody see it.
Well, even before everybody got on, Bill, you were totally like the adult romper room. I mean, it's this little hole, right? And the wizard is looking through the little hole, and it's like, oh, Billy is here. Shelly's here. Oh, Lisa just arrived. Oh, Vanessa. Oh, she poof gone. Oh, she's back.
Yeah.
Right? Like there is this opening. And the Wizard of Oz, you know, kind of came to mind. You know, the man behind the curtain. Yeah, we've got this balloon, but I don't know. I'm not quite sure how it works. Right? So it's the answer, but I don't know how it works.
Great analogy.
So
again, this is one more thing for us to be afraid of. You know, this much larger than we are in our little homes and whatever. Or you can just live your life and have those thoughts for a moment and then calm yourself down and say, all right, what difference does that make if it's true, if it is what's so, right? So in terms of expanding a conversation like this one, it is a conversation that's much bigger than 4 people, right?
oh, absolutely. It's a worldwide. You know, look, just what you just said. Fear is the basis of all of that, right? Mm-hmm. If we are afraid of something, that's where it starts. If you don't recognize that is the basis of where it starts.
Yes. Yeah, I think there's a lot to be said for those people who live by the, by the code of ignorance is bliss, and I refuse to be made unhappy. You know, it's like I've got a brother-in-law. When he watches something on TV and everybody else in the room's getting upset, he goes, "So what? So, so, what's that got to do with you and me?" You know, on to the next thing. I don't know many people that respond to that sort of thing. You know, if somebody smacks you in the mouth, what do you do? It's gotten a better chance of happening this week than it would have maybe a year ago, I think. You're talking to a guy who's just sitting fat, dumb, and happy in his home, sleeping, sawing off the logs, and the next morning comes out and finds the windows, in my van shot up with a pellet gun. I know that whoever did it figured I could afford it. You know, I mean, you got 2 cars in the driveway. Well, we're gonna fix one of them for you.
You know, going back to what you said, I rarely watch TV. I'll turn it on. I started watching baseball and a little bit of the women's basketball. But I was flipping through the channels, and there's boxing. It's the martial arts where they have the gloves on, but you can kick and you can do whatever. I sat there for like 3 minutes and I was just appalled. I'm like, I don't care if it's a sport. Like, these people are literally, this guy's on the ground and I'm just going to beat you until the whistle blows. I got so charged. I couldn't be with it. I'm like, this is absolutely distraught and wrong. And there are people cheering well, there weren't, but normally there are. I had to turn it off. But that is something that kind of goes along with this, right? It's only a sport. No, that guy's beating the crap out. Yeah, but he stepped in the ring. I don't care. It's a moral compass. It's something that's missing.
Yes.
Anyway, see, I get even charged about it just talking about it because it, kind of like Lisa and you and that one SVU, it just keeps going.
Well, the thing is, we're going to come up against it. I mean, mostly at a distance and mostly over either a computer screen or a telephone screen or a TV screen. But in the meantime, what is a powerful thing that we can do to start generating the pebble into the pond, as Ken likes to say?
And I'm throwing this out there, pose a question, a powerful question.
Do you have one?
It depends on what that scenario is. A one that would shift or just completely change the mindset? No, I don't. But that was just something that came to mind.
What it reminds me of is, a parent, when a kid starts acting out, they go, what are you doing? Anything to interrupt the situation. And then we had some neighbors. And the first thing that I ever heard the mother say to the kid was, "What's wrong with you?" What is wrong with you? I thought, geez, is that okay? Can she say that? Well, look, another hour has practically gone by, and we've had some serious tones. We got a message from God, I am sure, letting me know that they're looking for me for my extended warranty coverage. And at the same time, when I speak to people about something that's good and powerful and going forward, it kind of gives me a lot more resistance in that antidote that I was asking about earlier. To me, it's critical thinking. It's the willingness to be objective in terms of listening to hear the other point of view fully and understand it and make your own choice. But I really see a culture that just goes from zero to battle stations on the drop of any word. And the list of words you can't say just keeps getting bigger and bigger. But who's saying you can't say it? All the people that are saying those words themselves. So again, it just kind of makes my head hurt. And I'm really wondering if there's a payoff here somewhere.
The payoff is selling everything, walking 19 miles in and pitching your tent.
And wait for the carrier pigeon?
Wait for the carrier pigeon.
Because the carrier pigeon will come.
Yes, he will.
Well, that is fantastic. So I like it. I guess probably the epilogue to our conversation today is, maybe we ask a better question. So as we're parting, Vanessa, as we're parting, do you have a better question?
No, I don't, but I was just going to salute that. I just think it's great that our conversation usually goes around and then we end up with, like you said, where we're getting ready to ask a better question.
Mm-hmm.
I like that.
Yeah.
I do too. And you know what?
Questions keep the conversation going,
Yes. And I'm pretty sure I love all three of you. As a matter of fact, I'm definitely sure that I love all three of you. I love Ken too. But the week that is coming, I think, is going to have a very interesting set of challenges for all of us. There will be a rhetoric storm that's even greater than the rhetoric storm that we normally have. And there's an opportunity to listen for the gold in what people are saying. Even if people are using code and they're speaking in terminology that's used to describe a group of people who talks and uses words to describe another group of people because they know everything about them, They're still human beings. They're still good in there. There's good in there in somewhere. I believe that there's good in every single human being. And that's good enough for me. So, Shelley, any parting thoughts?
Listen. I think listen. And hear, as you said, listen between the words.
It's great. Lisa?
Well, I probably hinted at this quote before, but I thought I'd leave you with probably my favorite Rumi quote, which is, out beyond ideas of wrongdoing and right doing, there's a field. I'll meet you there. When the soul lies down in that grass, the world is too full to talk about.
That's great. Thank you.
Very
Vanessa?
deep. Yeah, I had recently come across a quote which I just wanted to share. I thought would be good for the end of this. Is the beginning of healing is just getting to be heard. So I just think that if someone has an opinion, don't stop sharing your opinion, especially if someone tells you to shut up. Just keep sharing your opinion. You can share it with someone that you know that you're close to and that you trust, or you can write it in a journal, but just get it out and at least have that feeling of being heard, because we are all in need of healing.
Yes. That's great. The Buddha said, if outsiders speak against me, the teaching or the order, you should not be angry, for that would prevent your own self-conquest. Similarly, if they praise us, but you should find out what is true and what is false and acknowledge the fact. And even in praise, it is only of trifling matters that an unconverted man might speak of me. No one is ever going to praise you or damn you over anything really significant. That is the antidote of the moment for me. Listen, understand, make your own choice.
You've been listening to Lighting the Candle, A World That Works, part of the Exvadio Podcast Network. You can hear us at exvadio.com/podcasts, Apple Podcasts app, Google Play, Spotify, iHeartRadio, Stitcher, and wherever you find podcasts.